What happens when you spend $2.3 billion building the future of entertainment only to watch it burn through nearly $500 million in losses within 12 months? Las Vegas' Sphere was supposed to revolutionize live performance, a glowing monument to human ambition rising over the desert skyline. With 1.2 million LED panels, 16K resolution screens, and technology that seemed pulled from science fiction, it captured the world's attention. But beneath that spectacular exterior lies a financial reality that's far less impressive. The numbers tell a story that the dazzling visuals try hard to hide. Stay with me, because what's happening to the Sphere reveals something bigger about Vegas itself. The construction nightmare and cost explosion. The Sphere's journey from concept to reality reads like a cautionary tale about ambition colliding with economic reality. When billionaire James Dolan announced the project in 2018, he promised something that would change entertainment forever. The initial budget seemed audacious enough, but what followed became a masterclass in how massive projects spiral out of control. Construction kicked off in 2019 with a planned 2021 opening date. Then COVID-19 hit and everything fell apart. The pandemic didn't just delay construction, it fundamentally altered the financial equation. Supply chains collapsed, labor costs exploded, and material prices skyrocketed. By the time the Sphere finally opened its doors in September 2023, the price tag had doubled from the original projections to a staggering $2.3 billion. To put that in perspective, that's more expensive than Allegiant Stadium, the massive 65,000-seat venue where the Las Vegas Raiders play. The Sphere holds just 18,600 people, yet costs significantly more to build. What drove those costs so high? Everything about the Sphere is custom engineered. The venue features 167,000 speakers integrated into the seating area, creating what's called beamforming audio that can direct different sounds to different sections simultaneously. The interior screen wraps around the audience with 16K resolution, higher than any cinema screen in existence. Each seat contains haptic technology that vibrates in sync with the performance. Nothing is off the shelf and nothing is cheap. The exterior exosphere alone represents a technological marvel wrapped in financial risk. Those 1.2 million LED pucks covering the building's surface create the highest resolution LED screen on Earth. But maintaining them requires specialized crews, replacement parts that don't exist anywhere else, and software updates that cost millions. A single projector inside costs over $100,000. When you're dealing with hundreds of these components, plus cooling systems powerful enough to handle the heat they generate, the maintenance budget becomes astronomical. Opening night looked like vindication for all those investments. U2's concert was a global sensation, with videos going viral across every social media platform. The visuals were genuinely unprecedented. Whales swimming overhead, landscapes that made audiences feel like they were traveling through space, imagery so realistic people reported feeling motion sickness. Critics called it the future of live performance. Ticket prices ranged from $250 to $400, and the show sold out for weeks. But here's what nobody talked about in those early headlines. Even with sellout crowds at premium prices, the math still didn't work. The brutal financial reality. Let's talk numbers, because this is where the Sphere story gets truly interesting. In its first full year of operation, Sphere Entertainment Company reported an operating loss of $480 million. Think about that figure for a moment. Nearly $500 million lost in 12 months, despite hosting one of the most famous rock bands in the world and charging premium prices that would make Broadway producers blush. Sphere Entertainment, which was spun off from Madison Square Garden Entertainment specifically to handle this venture, tried to frame the losses as transitional. In investor calls, executives talked about building brand awareness, establishing operational procedures, and creating a foundation for future profitability. Wall Street wasn't buying it. The company's stock, which had jumped after the spectacular opening week, began a steady decline as investors realized the fundamental business model had serious problems. Here's the core issue. The Sphere doesn't generate revenue like a traditional Vegas venue. It's not a casino, so there's no gambling income. It doesn't have hotel rooms attached, so no lodging revenue. It relies entirely on 3 income streams: ticket sales from shows, corporate sponsorships displayed on the exosphere, and event rentals. That's it. And none of those streams are producing enough cash to cover the massive fixed costs. The venue's capacity creates its own problem. With 18,600 seats, the Sphere is actually relatively small for such an expensive facility. Many shows fill only half those seats, particularly for non-celebrity performances. Darren Aronofsky's Postcard from Earth, an original film created specifically for the Sphere, charges about $120 per ticket, less than half what U2 commanded. Even at those prices, attendance has been inconsistent. Industry insiders report that weeknight shows sometimes see occupancy below 40%. But even sellouts don't guarantee profitability, and that's what makes the Sphere's economics so challenging. Every performance requires enormous production costs. Artists demand premium fees to perform there because creating a show for the Sphere isn't like performing at a normal venue. The 3D content needs to be produced from scratch, requiring months of work by specialized visual effects teams. U2 reportedly spent over $50 million developing their residency show. Those costs get amortized across ticket sales, but when you factor in artist fees, production expenses, technical staff, utilities, and maintenance, even packed houses barely break even. The electricity bill alone tells a sobering story. During peak operational months, the Sphere burns through more than $1.5 million in energy costs. The cooling systems run continuously. They have to, because all that LED technology generates massive heat. The audio system requires constant power to keep circuits ready. The screens need to stay calibrated. Even on dark nights when no show is scheduled, the building costs tens of thousands of dollars per day just to maintain. Then there's the exosphere revenue, which sounded promising in the business plan but hasn't delivered. Companies like YouTube, Xbox, and Meta have paid to display content on that massive exterior screen, turning the Sphere into the world's most expensive billboard. But sponsorship deals aren't covering the shortfall. The going rate for a major exosphere campaign runs between $500,000 and $2 million depending on duration, but you'd need constant bookings at the high end just to cover a fraction of operating costs. And here's the catch. Too much advertising cheapens the Sphere's brand, the very thing that makes it special: operational chaos and human cost. Behind those spectacular visuals lies an operational reality that's far less glamorous. Talk to people who actually work at the Sphere and a different picture emerges, one of exhaustion, technical challenges, and constant pressure. Engineers and technicians describe a venue that demands perfection while dealing with systems so complex that something breaks every single day. The technical demands are genuinely brutal. Every show requires around-the-clock crews calibrating screens, adjusting audio levels, testing haptic systems, and monitoring hundreds of interconnected systems. A single glitch during a performance can ruin the illusion that makes the Sphere special. Overheating remains a persistent problem despite multiple cooling system upgrades. Technicians report that certain sections of the LED interior sometimes display color inconsistencies that require immediate attention. One engineer, speaking anonymously, described spending 18-hour shifts troubleshooting problems that wouldn't exist in a conventional venue. The staffing model adds another layer of complexity. Unlike traditional entertainment venues that can scale labor up and down based on show schedules, the Sphere requires substantial full-time technical teams just to keep systems operational. But hospitality staff, ushers, concessions, box office, work irregular schedules tied to show frequency. This creates a bifurcated workforce where some employees have secure positions with brutal hours, while others struggle with unpredictable schedules and inconsistent income. Union organizers have raised concerns about working conditions, citing high turnover rates and complaints about mandatory overtime. Multiple job postings for technical positions advertise willingness to work extended hours as a requirement. The Sphere runs shows typically 4 to 5 times per week during active residencies, but preparation work happens 7 days a week. Maintenance windows often occur overnight when the building is closed to the public, meaning technical crews work graveyard shifts while daytime operations continue. In late 2024, something telling happened. As Sphere Entertainment celebrated its first anniversary with press releases emphasizing attendance figures and visual spectacle, several job listings quietly disappeared from their careers page. Industry sources reported layoffs affecting operations and hospitality teams. Not massive numbers, but significant enough to signal trouble. When a $2.3 billion venue starts trimming staff barely 2 years after opening, that's not operational streamlining, that's financial triage. The human cost extends beyond the employees directly affected. Las Vegas's entertainment workforce is tightly interconnected. Stagehands, lighting technicians, and audio engineers often work multiple venues, and word spreads quickly about which employers offer stable, decent work and which ones grind people down. The Sphere's reputation among Vegas's behind-the-scenes talent pool has suffered. That matters for future productions because attracting top technical talent becomes harder when the workplace culture develops a negative reputation. What's emerged is a pattern familiar from other Vegas mega projects. Spectacular public image masking internal dysfunction. The Sphere looks perfect from the outside because enormous resources get directed toward maintaining that perfection. But sustainable businesses aren't built on exhausting staff to maintain an illusion. They're built on operational efficiency and reasonable working conditions that allow consistent performance over years, not months. The tourism problem Vegas doesn't want to admit. Here's where the Sphere's struggles intersect with a larger crisis facing Las Vegas itself. The city's traditional tourism model, affordable getaways where middle-class Americans could feel like high rollers for a weekend, is dying. And the Sphere, with its premium pricing and luxury positioning, exemplifies exactly why Vegas is pricing out the very audience that built it. A 2025 UNLV study revealed a 6.5% decline in leisure visitors compared to the previous year. That might sound modest, but in Vegas, small drops create massive ripples. The city's economy runs on volume, millions of visitors spending moderate amounts on gambling, shows, restaurants, and hotels. When that volume decreases, every entertainment venue feels the impact. The Sphere depends on steady tourist flow, but that flow is slowing to a trickle. Multiple factors are squeezing Vegas tourism simultaneously. Airfare costs have increased 40% since 2019, making the destination less accessible for budget-conscious travelers. Hotel rates on the Strip now regularly exceed $200 per night for standard rooms, with resort fees adding another $30 to $50. What was once an affordable escape has become a luxury vacation that many families simply can't justify. When you're already spending $500 to $700 just on lodging for a long weekend, dropping another $250 per person for a Sphere show becomes a tough sell. The convention business, once a pillar of Vegas tourism, has softened considerably. Major conferences that used to bring 50,000 attendees now draw 30,000. Hybrid and virtual event options have permanently changed corporate travel patterns. Business travelers, who typically have more disposable income and are willing to splurge on entertainment, represent a smaller percentage of Vegas visitors than at any point in the last 2 decades. The Sphere was counting on corporate groups and convention attendees to fill weeknight shows, but those audiences are increasingly absent. But there's a deeper problem, one that goes beyond pricing. Vegas has lost its sense of spontaneity and discovery. The city has become so expensive, so regimented, so focused on premium experiences that it's sucked out the chaos that made it special. People used to wander the Strip, ducking into shows on a whim, trying new casinos, discovering unexpected entertainment. Now, everything requires advanced planning, reservations, and significant financial commitment. The Sphere embodies this shift. You can't just walk up and decide to see a show. You book weeks ahead, pay premium prices, and arrive at a scheduled time. The demographic shifts compound these challenges. The baby boomers who packed Vegas for decades are aging out of the core tourist demographic. Younger generations have different entertainment preferences, tighter budgets, and less interest in traditional Vegas experiences. Millennials and Gen Z travelers prioritize experiences over spectacle, authenticity over polish, social connection over isolated immersion. The Sphere offers stunning technology but limited social interaction. You sit in darkness watching screens. That's the opposite of what younger audiences want when they travel. Meanwhile, competition for entertainment dollars has intensified. Sports betting is now legal in most states, eliminating one of Vegas's unique draws. Streaming services offer thousands of hours of content for less than the cost of a single Sphere ticket. Regional casinos have proliferated across America, offering gambling without airfare. The monopoly Vegas once held on certain experiences has evaporated, and the city hasn't fully adjusted to that new reality. The social media trap and the illusion of success. Walk past the Sphere on any given evening and you'll see dozens of people standing on the sidewalk, phones held high, capturing video of the exosphere. The massive eyeball staring down at the city, the emoji faces cycling through expressions, the sports team logos glowing against the night sky. It's endlessly photogenic. Those videos rack up millions of views across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. The Sphere has become the most photographed landmark in Las Vegas, and therein lies a problem film that perfectly captures modern Vegas. Virality doesn't equal viability. The vast majority of people taking those photos never go inside. They drive by, film it, post it, and move on. The Sphere has become a backdrop for content creation, not a destination for entertainment consumption. It looks like success, millions of social media impressions, constant online presence, global brand awareness. But impressions don't pay the bills. That massive free advertising the Sphere generates for itself translates into remarkably little actual ticket revenue. This phenomenon reveals something profound about how Vegas has evolved. The city has optimized itself for social media documentation rather than genuine experience. Everything is built to be photographed, Instagrammed, turned into content. The picture has replaced the memory. The post has replaced the story. Tourists spend more time curating their online presence than actually engaging with the place they're visiting. They want the evidence that they were there, not necessarily the experience of being there. The Sphere's architecture inadvertently enabled this behavior by making the exterior so spectacular, so dynamic, so impossible to ignore. It created an experience that can be consumed entirely from outside. You don't need to spend $200 on a ticket to feel like you've experienced the Sphere. You can watch it from the street, capture it on your phone, and share it with your followers. You've gotten what you came for without spending a dime. Compare this to old Vegas, where the spectacle was inside the buildings. The exterior facades were impressive, sure, but the real action happened inside the casinos, the showrooms, the lounges. You had to enter, you had to spend money, you had to participate. The Sphere inverted that model, putting the most impressive element on the outside where it's free to view. From a business perspective, this was a miscalculation. From a cultural perspective, it's a perfect metaphor for how Vegas lost its way. The irony runs deeper still. The Sphere's viral social media presence actually works against it financially. When millions of people feel they've already experienced the Sphere through online videos, they're less motivated to actually attend. Why pay hundreds of dollars for something you've already seen? The novelty has been consumed digitally, reducing the urgency to experience it physically. This is the trap of modern spectacle. The more successfully it circulates online, the less necessary it becomes to experience in person. Meanwhile, the shows happening inside the Sphere rarely achieve the same social media traction as the building itself. U2's residency generated some viral moments, but even those didn't approach the reach of simple videos of the exosphere. Darren Aronofsky's Postcard from Earth is technically stunning, but has almost zero social media presence. People share images of the building, not content from the shows. The container has become more famous than what it contains. The corporate problem and the loss of Vegas soul. Here's something that doesn't get discussed enough. The people running the Sphere don't live in Las Vegas. They work in corporate offices in New York, making decisions based on spreadsheets and financial models. And that represents a fundamental break from what made Vegas work for decades. This city was built by characters, mob figures, casino owners, eccentric entrepreneurs who lived in Vegas, who understood its rhythm, who made decisions based on instinct and experience rather than data analytics. Steve Wynn transformed Vegas by trusting his gut about luxury. Kirk Kerkorian built massive properties based on personal vision. Even the mobsters who ran early Vegas understood something essential, that the city thrives on risk, on personality, on the willingness to make bold, sometimes irrational decisions. The Sphere is the complete opposite of that tradition. Everything about it is calculated, optimized, engineered for maximum theoretical profit, but it forgot the human element that makes Vegas special. This corporate approach shows up in every aspect of the Sphere's operation. The shows are focus grouped. The pricing is algorithm determined. The marketing is data driven. The result is something technically perfect, but emotionally hollow. Old Vegas made you feel something: excitement, danger, possibility. It was messy and imperfect, but it was alive. The Sphere is polished to a mirror shine, but there's no soul in that perfection. You marvel at the technology without forming any emotional connection to the experience. The entertainment choices reflect this corporate thinking. U2 is a safe, predictable choice, a legendary band with a massive fan base and proven draw. Postcard from Earth was created by a respected filmmaker, carefully designed to showcase the venue's capabilities. These are conservative decisions dressed up as innovation. Where's the weird show that shouldn't work but becomes iconic? Where's the unexpected artist who redefines what the venue can do? Where's the risk? Compare this to Cirque du Soleil's Vegas history. When they first came to the city in the 1990s with Mystère, it was a gamble, a Canadian acrobatic troupe doing abstract artistic performances in a city known for headliners and showgirls. Nobody knew if Vegas audiences would embrace it, but it worked because someone took a risk, and that risk paid off with decades of success. The Sphere hasn't taken any real risks. It's played it safe with its programming, which is death for a venue trying to establish itself as revolutionary. The financial structure reinforces this conservative approach. Sphere Entertainment is publicly traded, which means quarterly earnings reports, shareholder expectations, and constant pressure to show improvement. That environment discourages experimentation and long-term thinking. Every decision gets evaluated through the lens of immediate financial impact. But entertainment venues don't become iconic by playing it safe. They become iconic by trying things that might fail, by giving audiences experiences they didn't know they wanted. This also shows up in customer service and operations. Multiple visitors have reported that staff seem overwhelmed and undertrained, following rigid protocols without authority to solve problems creatively. That's corporate structure filtering down to the guest experience. In classic Vegas, floor managers and pit bosses had discretion to comp meals, upgrade rooms, or bend rules to keep customers happy. The Sphere operates like a modern theme park. Policies are policies, exceptions are rare, and nobody has the power to do anything that's not in the manual. The expansion fantasy and the pattern of Vegas failure. In early 2025, Sphere Entertainment announced plans for a second Sphere in Abu Dhabi. The press release framed it as evidence of success, proof that the concept was expanding globally, but talked to financial analysts, and many saw it differently, as an attempt to attract new investors and offset losses from the Las Vegas location. It's a pattern Vegas has repeated for decades: launch with massive hype, struggle quietly, then announce expansion plans to create the illusion of momentum. Remember Fontainebleau, the massive resort that started construction in 2007, went bankrupt during the financial crisis, sat as an abandoned concrete shell for years, and only recently reopened under different ownership after a complete restart. Or Resorts World, which took over the old Stardust site with promises of revolutionizing the Strip experience, but has struggled to differentiate itself in a crowded market. Or the High Roller Observation Wheel, which opened with fanfare but now mainly serves as a backdrop for wedding photos. Vegas history is littered with projects that seemed revolutionary during construction, but became footnotes after opening. The Abu Dhabi Sphere raises obvious questions. If the Las Vegas location is losing hundreds of millions annually, why would building a second one in a different market improve the economics? The construction costs will be similar, maybe higher due to importing specialized materials and expertise. The operational challenges won't disappear. And Abu Dhabi, while wealthy, doesn't have the same volume of tourists that Vegas attracts. The market is fundamentally smaller. What makes more sense from a business perspective is that the Abu Dhabi project serves as a vehicle for new investment capital. It allows Sphere Entertainment to go to sovereign wealth funds and international investors with a story about global expansion. It creates the appearance of a growing business rather than a struggling asset. It's also worth noting that these international mega projects often come with government subsidies, tax incentives, and other financial benefits that improve the economics relative to the US market. But there's a deeper issue here. The Sphere's challenges aren't primarily about location. They're about the fundamental business model. Building more spheres doesn't fix the problems of expensive operation, limited programming flexibility, and niche appeal. It just spreads those problems across more markets. The global expansion narrative assumes that what's not working in Vegas will somehow work elsewhere, which is classic corporate optimism detached from operational reality. History suggests skepticism is warranted. How many Vegas concepts have successfully expanded internationally? The hard truth is that Vegas works because of a unique combination of factors: location, regulations, culture, tourism infrastructure that don't easily replicate elsewhere. The Sphere might be even more vulnerable to this because its appeal depends so heavily on novelty and spectacle. Once you've built 2 or 3 spheres globally, the concept loses its uniqueness. It becomes just another chain of entertainment venues, and the premium pricing becomes harder to justify. The customer experience divide and the loyalty problem. Read customer reviews of the Sphere and you'll find something fascinating. They're split almost perfectly down the middle. Half the reviewers call it life-changing, transcendent, worth every penny. The other half call it overpriced, overhyped, and disappointing. That divide isn't random. It reveals something fundamental about the Sphere's positioning and why it's struggling to build sustainable business. The people who love the Sphere tend to be technology enthusiasts, visitors who appreciate cutting-edge audio-visual experiences, and tourists who view the ticket price as part of a once-in-a-lifetime Vegas splurge. They're not necessarily repeat customers. They're experiencing it once, marveling at the innovation, and checking it off their bucket list. That's nice for initial attendance, but it's terrible for long-term business. Successful entertainment venues build audiences that come back repeatedly, that develop loyalty, that become advocates who bring friends and family. The critics raise more practical concerns: uncomfortable seating, limited legroom, overpriced concessions, and a sense that the technology overwhelms the actual content. Many specifically mention that the shows feel more like tech demos than genuine entertainment. The spectacle impresses, but it doesn't create emotional resonance. You walk out thinking, that was cool, rather than, I need to experience that again. This points to a fundamental miscalculation. The Sphere was designed to showcase technology rather than enhance storytelling. The venue is the star, not the performers or the content. That's backwards from how successful entertainment works. People develop loyalty to artists, to stories, to characters and performances. They don't develop loyalty to buildings, no matter how impressive the buildings are. Compare the Sphere to Cirque du Soleil shows on the Strip. Tens of thousands of people have seen O or Cobb multiple times. They bring visiting relatives, they celebrate special occasions there, they return because the shows create emotional connections. The technology serves the story rather than overwhelming it. The Sphere hasn't figured out how to do that yet. The visuals are so dominant that they overshadow everything else, leaving audiences dazzled but not emotionally invested. The pricing structure compounds this loyalty problem. At $150 to $400 per ticket, the Sphere positions itself as a luxury experience. But luxury experiences create expectations, not just of quality, but of exclusivity, service, and personalization. Many visitors report that the Sphere feels more like a theme park attraction than a luxury event. The lines, the crowds, the rushed feeling of getting people in and out. It doesn't match the premium price point. You're paying luxury prices for mass market treatment. Then there's the repeat visit problem. Once you've seen a show at the Sphere, how motivated are you to return? Unless a completely different artist does a residency with entirely new content, you've essentially experienced what the venue offers. Compare that to a casino, where every visit offers different gambling outcomes, or a traditional theater where different productions rotate through. The Sphere's strength, its highly customized venue-specific shows, becomes a weakness when you consider long-term customer retention. The future question and the path forward. So where does the Sphere go from here? Can it recover and become the revolutionary venue it promised to be? Or is it destined to become another cautionary tale about Vegas excess? The answer likely depends on whether management is willing to fundamentally rethink their approach rather than just tweaking around the edges. The technology itself isn't the problem. It's genuinely remarkable. The Sphere could host esports tournaments with unprecedented production values. It could premiere films in formats that no other venue can match. It could host scientific exhibitions, educational programs, corporate events, even religious gatherings. The potential applications are massive if they're willing to think beyond traditional concerts and entertainment residencies. But realizing that potential requires lowering barriers to entry. The ticket prices need to come down significantly to build volume. Perhaps tiered pricing, where upper sections cost $50 to $75, making the experience accessible to the middle-class tourists Vegas desperately needs to attract. Or package deals with hotels that bundle Sphere tickets with rooms at reduced rates. Or subscription models for locals that encourage repeat visits. The programming needs to become more adventurous and varied. Book emerging artists willing to take creative risks. Partner with content creators who can develop shows specifically for the format. Host events that take advantage of the venue's uniqueness. Imagine a nature documentary where audiences feel immersed in rainforests or oceans, or historical recreations that transport people to different eras. The venue's capabilities far exceed how they're currently being used. The business model might need to pivot toward becoming a hybrid venue. What if the Sphere hosted events during the day? Corporate presentations, educational programs, specialized content at much lower price points, with premium entertainment in the evenings. That would spread costs across more events and reduce dependence on a small number of high-profile residencies. It would also build local audience engagement, which barely exists right now. But there's a clock ticking. Vegas moves fast. There's always another attraction opening, another spectacle capturing attention. The Sphere has maybe 2 to 3 more years to establish sustainable operations before it risks becoming irrelevant. New properties are already in development on the Strip. Technology keeps advancing. What seems cutting edge today will look dated in 5 years. The window for the Sphere to define its place in Vegas is closing. The broader question is whether Vegas itself can adapt to the economic realities reshaping American tourism. The city can't keep chasing ultra-luxury positioning while abandoning the middle market that built it. Every property can't be premium priced. Every experience can't be exclusive. Vegas thrived by making millions of people feel special, not by making thousands of people feel wealthy. The Sphere embodies the wrong direction: spectacular, expensive, impressive, but ultimately disconnected from what made Vegas work. The Sphere stands as a testament to both human ingenuity and economic miscalculation. It's the most technologically advanced entertainment venue ever built, and it's losing hundreds of millions of dollars. That paradox captures something essential about modern Vegas: the belief that bigger, flashier, more expensive automatically means better. But the Sphere is proving that assumption wrong in real time. The lights will keep glowing, the exosphere will keep displaying its mesmerizing content, but behind that spectacular facade sits a business model that doesn't work. Vegas used to make everyone feel like a winner. Now it's building monuments that even billionaires can't figure out how to profit from. Drop a comment about whether you'd pay $250 for a Sphere show, and hit subscribe because the Vegas story is far from over.